Hello, everyone, and welcome to another discussion with me and Joanna. This is more of an impromptu discussion that we were discussing a little while ago about whether or not the belief in whether it is people's time, actually, when they pass on, is truly their time. The reason that this was brought up, this is actually a very interesting and fascinating discussion. It was on Interstellar Council. Frank Frazetta, when he came through, said that there was overages and there was mixtures of things that took place in the process to the afterlife. He was hinting at a greater concept. He didn't go completely gung ho with it. We're going to go gung ho with it at the moment. So what I mean by this is this: there are some spirits that come through and they say they died when it's their time. They always have to emphasize that they've died when it's their time. And I've always been a fervent believer in that it was also part of the New Age movement as well. And as we all know, the history of that was the three-letter agencies created the New Age movement in order to divide people within themselves, take a false and a true belief system and mash them together. And then that's how you got the New Age movement. In some cases, there's a lot of truth there, but there's a lot of falsehoods that have been put in there. I personally like to pick things apart like this. You know, some would say I'm too analytical that way. I'm very semantical in terminology and all this other stuff, but the wording counts as well. With this, what was being implied was there was a greater concept that needed to be touched on, like the hamster wheel, like when we did the show on the hamster wheel. We have not aired yet by the time this would air. But this, every spirit that has ever come through, one could say that they were just acknowledging that it was their time to reaffirm or confirm or validate on our end that that was a completely and utterly true concept. Or you can see it from the flip side, saying, no, it was my time, mine. Like they're validating that it was more for them than us. You could see it from that angle too. Basically saying it was my time, might not have been others' time, but it was my time. Because you're always hearing stories about people that have had near-death experiences and sent back and saying it's not their time. Well, who determines the time? Who determines the time that you go? I've heard of things. My mother heard of a concept called exit points back in the 90s, whereas somebody could check out at an exit point before their soul mission was done and then do whatever later. Okay, that kind of undoes the whole it's the person's time thing just by that concept alone being introduced into the fray. It contradicts the other one. So which is it? You know, is the person leaving they're supposed to, or do they leave when they choose to? Does the soul plan it out completely before then? Is every single thing in history planned out, or are there multiple variances? Because overage is a variance. Overage is always a variance. It's a wild card, but on the dark end of the spectrum. That means you need wild cards on the light end of the spectrum. Just like there is a game that I play, and I'm going to be putting a recording up on this. Is a beautiful, beautiful example of both of these concepts mashed together. There's a game called Kingdoms of Amalur, whereas the whole world believes in the threads of fate, whereas you have your entire history planned out from birth to death. And it's always in a script, always in a thread. And your character dies because they were fated to die, but then they come back as a wild card that can interrupt every one of those threads and prove that those threads can be cut and everything is just fine. People then have more sovereign choice. This was the premise of that game, was sovereign choice was greater than fate. That's what was the premise of the storyline in that. Whereas this wild card was able to end an entire Armageddon people had co-created over many centuries, thinking that, oh, this was inevitable, the world's going to end, all this other stuff. No, and you know this was totally preventable. Just that people had to get out of the indoctrinated belief system. And the more things you interfere with in the game, every little quest you interfere with, it completely starts to unravel and change all of the dynamics of these threads that were considered sacred through the whole thing. And the more you do, the more you interrupt it. So I see this as something like that. Introducing something like say, the exit point concept is very much like that concept. It completely interrupts the other. And who determines, oh, you don't get, no, you don't get to stay here. No, it's not your time. What if that person chose to stay? What if they wanted to be in spirit? Who chooses that they can come back? Other than the person's oversoul? Oversoul, I can see because it's still them. But who outside of that gets to play that role?
It's
you
the
don't get
same
to play
thing
that
for
role.
coming in.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting thing you were telling me about Frank
Frazetta,
coming in and saying that he actually was, if you think of where he is and where he came from and where he's he just from himself.
Mm-hmm.
And but then again, it's like, well, and he just decided to come in. Well, did he have to get permission to come in, or did he just come in?
Yeah.
We normally think of these concepts as some sort of organized, agreed upon methodology of, you get in line, you get in line to be reborn, you choose your parents, you do these things.
Yes.
And, and then we've heard of these terms, anomaly, wild card. We've heard these different terms before. Now, I don't think really having yet the greatest understanding of what does that actually mean, because it makes it sound like, things are so scripted. However, I will say that, to have certain experiences, assuming again that we do come in a lot of times in free will to have experience, just like Frank did, then there has to be, some sort of tapestry of meeting people, of to have the cause and effect that you want, or is it just literally the energies that draw someone to you? You don't really have to have a plan in place, because everything has been thought of as just a plan, always a plan. It's always planned. And so it's an interesting conversation again as we tell everyone out there, and that we're revisiting so many different concepts in the deny the known. Don't assume that you do know everything. Have the desire to want to have more knowledge and experience in the understandings. We like to know how it's all working. It's one of our interests to figure out the dynamics of how this all works. And so, in that deny the known, to bring all of this up again, to have a discussion. I will say again, like Chris was saying, my brother and sister that passed made a beeline to make sure that we knew that there wasn't oppression involved. I don't know why my hair is standing up. Look at that. Static. There's something going on. That's
it's funny. In the closet, whatever it is.
But that they made a beeline to make sure that we understood that they crossed, in their opinion, in their understanding, when they were supposed to, meaning not in an oppressive way, which always worries for us. So if you're coming across to say that you passed and not in an oppressive way it was meant to be, again, as Chris was saying, then is there a way that people die being oppressed and they didn't want to go, and they were oppressed and they were forced off the chessboard, let's say? You would think with, again, if you talk non-humans and you talk about what you run across, not that they have souls, but you end people off the chessboard all the time, beings and things like that. Take them off the chessboard if they're bothering people or whatever. Well, was that their planned time to go, always meant to be? Or did you literally come in and circumvent something and end, a situation, or, negative unwanted entity or something like that? So it's an interesting thing now to sit back and try to review, because, and to ponder a little bit. It's interesting because when we were discussing this morning, I did not know that some of the conversation that was had yesterday in the recording, when you had told me, well, Frank seems to agree with what you're saying right now from when he came in yesterday. I didn't know of that conversation. So,
And he could paint his own, basically his own afterlife and his own heaven and his own, oh, even though we've spoken on that subject before, but that was more of an oppressive realm where they took the indoctrination and made their own heavens. He chose to come in at the timing that he did. He had no supervision for it. He had no one telling him he had to do it. He chose it. Even though we do choose our paths, and he did say this, you can alter it and switch track as you go along. It's still part of whatever mission you chose, but it's still, there's a multitude of ways you can play it out, or you cannot. So it's that goes along with the whole exit point thing. But
so to me, this whole conversation, because I said, Chris, I don't think we can have this conversation. We're not going to have this conversation because we know we want to invite a conversation, which means inviting maybe some folks to come in and actually add to the conversation, because we're in the, open to it mode, but knowing that we don't know, in certain things that have been told that, that is wanting to be accepted as a truth, really, that may not be, there really may be way more to it than that. And we're open to that discussion.
Also, here's another aspect to this that is also needing to be questioned. There's two sides. There's two schools of thought in this as well. Like Frank Frazetta, for instance, he was totally in spirit, but this kills the whole idea about spirits not being able to feel things like sensations and all this other stuff. He chose to keep all of his human, everything intact, very much like an immortal human, as the avatar of his oversoul, but then still could experience things like sex, all this other stuff. That throws the whole spirit thing out the window, what you would normally think. Also, here's another aspect to this. There's a choice whether to go even visit your soul family. A lot of people say, oh, you go back to your soul family. Yes, I've said this myself. But in the case of her sister, Jenny, she told me that not only were there lots of things that we hadn't discovered yet at that time, one of the hints she gave to me at that time, around a little bit after she passed on, was the fact that there's always choice involved. That I asked her if she went back to her soul family, and her response was, there is always choice. You go where you want. And it's not like it's an automatic prerequisites. There's no prerequisites here. Think of it, if source is everything, source is neutral, source is both good and bad, source is also choice and oppression. Think of it that way, because where you can choose where to go and what to do. So why would there be prerequisites in there? Why would there be a law laid down as to exactly how to do things? There might be recommendations on certain things, but there's not a law, like a universal law stamped into being. We, as a human race, have to create things like that. It wasn't prerequisite. It's just foreshadowing of what we can create here. Just like what Frank Rosetta was saying. It's up to you to create some of these things to improve creation, not the other way around. A creation beforehand, a lot of the oversouls were more just analytical and they didn't have a whole lot of passion there at some point. It was up to us to put it back out there, put that out there, and to give that back to creation, because creation is going to stagnate to a certain extent and constantly repeat. Remember how we've been saying
well, you know that, and you remind me of another conversation we were having that, again, based on some past experiences that you have, that some things that I've been thinking about, I keep saying, well, why, with my thoughts, well, why not? Well, why not? Well, why not? One of them, it's an interesting thing because it really would go back into when he came through and what he was talking about. Because again, a lot of people are realizing now maybe some of the best downloads and best channels and best things that they get really more come from them reaching up to themselves, their vast knowledge, and to just bring down the information that has been vetted through yourself, as a, going up to that vast library. The interesting thing again about energetics and everything is, when you think of yourself, again, I always use the example, think of yourself as a universe with so many stars and planets and everything is you. And everything is you, maybe at that current present moment, because everything is a current present moment, having multiple onion layers of experience, either aligned with a certain thread, like a lifetime, but it's really just onion layers of seconds all happening at the same time. And when you think about a torsion field, the greatness of yourself doing all of that, and the torsion field of that, why would you not? What is wrong with trying to unify with yourselves, let's say, to then at moments being able to bring in a greater torsion field for a creative moment here? And so I don't understand why that would be a no-no. I don't understand why, but I will say that we were talking about this because you were always told, don't look, don't go there, don't see your other selves, don't do this. And now in reflection,
that was a lie.
Well, I'm open to finding out whether or not it's a lie. I'm certainly open that there's nothing wrong with it, because again, Chris has readily admitted that maybe in his lifetime, some of the guides that have shown up have actually shown up to keep him
away from these
keep
things.
him away from information,
yeah.
you know what I mean, versus expanding information. And so it's an interesting dynamic because, here a gentleman comes in, and I see no problem if someone chooses to adopt fundamentally an avatar that they feel truly more represents themselves as a humanoid figure, with all, because I think that's what we do anyway when we're exploring and doing all of this at the same time. Part of what we're doing is developing and, maybe a favored identity that we would show up in the energies, and everyone says, oh, there's Frank, or there's, Joanna, or there's Chris. I'm more than just walking on earth, but that we adopt qualities that we feel more represent ourselves at a given moment as a representation. And obviously he has chosen what he wants to, he could have chosen, to be a rock person if that was his orientation. And I think some people do, or a dwarf, or this or that, but no, he chose this. And it's kind of funny because I feel myself, I just kind of feel I choose a representation more of a human, but I could be completely wrong. It just feels that way to me. But so it's an interesting conversation. It's all kind of related. It's an expansion of the concept of, energies. Where do you go? It seems to me that so many people are getting their hands slapped and their head handed back to them on a plate when they're reaching out now, if they have certain abilities and they're reaching out now from, for assistance, let's say true assistance, thinking it has to come outside themselves, that I'm wondering if really part of some of the experience is to crack the shells of all these different belief systems to realize that really who you should be trusting is yourself, bringing in more of yourself, getting the information from the big self, and, which then may be more pure and true to what you need at a given moment. Not that it isn't wonderful to hear other beings' perspectives, not that there's anything wrong with asking for assistance, because we're in a learning process. We're not there yet. We're just trying to figure all this out. Not that good benevolent guides aren't available to have conversations. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, this could be a big, let's say, watershed moment of realization for a lot of people that that I've been seeking so much outside myself that, and now I'm getting my hands slit and my, all these other problems, that I've got to spend more time. I think one of your biggest frustrations that's been happening is that, you get it, you will, after being worn, because some of this oppression can be wearing, after you're worn down a little bit, of course, you want to be rescued. You want someone to come in and do things
And
you want.
that's what the bad guys are hoping in society. They wear people down enough, they're going to want a savior.
They're going to want a savior. And
Yeah.
anyone in that position feeling like they've been worn down, haven't had a breath, haven't had whatever. And then again, you'll get really frustrated at times when, again, no one shows up and you're like, God damn it, then I'll do it myself. It's not right, but I'm going to do it myself. And then, you end up, taking care of it, or or I think you cause another opening to occur that, maybe also then allows for an assistance come in, because it's all about us needing to shift of how do we become a greater aspect of our own self. And that, everything almost lies within.
Yes, and when you get rid of things that don't belong there, it allows more of that to come in. That's what I've been seeing more and more of.
So I feel it's all of the above in a sense.
That means belief systems too.
Yes. So I feel it's all of the above, that, when you're in a learning phase, you do need assistance, just like if a child of yours was learning and needed assistance with math, or God knows if a big bully showed up and needed assistance for parent. I'm not saying, that we are just lone wolves, but I'm saying that, in this journey, I think there still are, because what I think Jenny actually said was, you've only scratched the surface of your understanding. And so, in that, I still very heavily believe that one of the best phrases, that we've ever come up to try to explain this exploration is deny the known and manifest differently. And so, but what does that really mean? It really truly means taking the time to explore all these subject matters with an intention in your mind that, I'm ready to explore the bigger understanding of it all, versus having an already set thought of what that understanding is supposed to be.
Yes, and also he was bringing the same thing up, where people have a certain template of what they think creation is, or what they believe is, like say Christianity or any of the other religions, even the New Age group. They have this set knot of what is, and they base everything they see and discover off of that base set of information. Even if it's a lie, they base it off of that, and they see everything. Just like Christians either see Jesus or Satan. There's no in between. The ones I used to know were like that. Oh no, that's evil. That's Satan. They used to say about my paranormal work. Oh, you're not supposed to go there. You're not supposed to question God and all this other stuff. They would do that. Oh, that's the devil's work. Or they go immediately in their house and start praying because to Jesus for forgiveness because they spoke to us, sort of thing. That's the kind of reception I got from that, and that's the kind of harshness I'm talking about, and all in between there. With different denominations and everything like that, you have this knot that they believe in over here, and they use it. They refer back to it for question and answer constantly. Oh no, this is this. Oh, this is this. Or this is this. No, like the Bible or other Christian sources or other religious sources, they will refer back to it. And if they would go back further past that, they would see that this was created and forged from oppression to begin with, and it should be discarded, except for the good things that belong, that were added into it. I'm not saying religion itself will be discarded itself. I feel that there's going to be variations of that for centuries to come. It's just that's another thing. Some of the New Age would think, these will be around for centuries to come. No, it's already starting to downsize into and get funneled into a single thing that's going to be gotten rid of at some point. There's evidence of this out there. How can I put this? All these things need to be questioned. All these narratives, including the ones that people find benevolent. I question the Venusian narratives constantly. I even Valiant Thor with the slow drip disclosure. I fervently disagree with the methodology. I see that it works. It doesn't mean that I agree with it, because it is too slow. It goes along with what was known as the 100-year disclosure. This the reason this goes along with this line of thinking is because I see it as being completely open, even above their agenda, which seems benevolent, which is benevolent, but does it serve all? No. Leaving the choice open does. And adding in the information, it's a brilliant maneuver, but it's too slow. It would take another 30, 40 years, 50 years to even begin to scratch the surface with that methodology. And there's people in this time that are at the end of the rope now. And one would say, oh, that was part of their mission. What if they want to take their mission in a different direction and fast track it? What if they want to get on the bullet train instead of the old locomotive? That's their choice. And I've noticed more and more as I've started to say that to people take the fast track, they get certain things, what they thought they had to get out of the way, they could sidestep. I'm going to actually give an example. Say, we said this kind of example with the whole Armageddon thing, where people go, okay, get the Armageddon thing out of the way, get it out of the way so we can have 1,000 years of peace. The whole thing was BS. So why would you want that? It's what you want. In this case, I know want is in the New Age terminology denotes future and not present. But in this instance, don't mind wipe me. No. In this instance, also as far as soul missions go, you're going to fast track what? What do you think you're also fast tracking? Are you going? Oh, I just want to get all the oppressive lessons out of the way. Why do you need all the oppressive lessons? Haven't you learned enough about trauma and sorrow? Why do you feel that the soul always has an extremely strict curriculum? Even Frank said there wasn't that there was a mission, but you can also take like if you were on a train, you could switch track it and find a better way for it, and find out by finding out all the things that are going on in your society, finding out all the things around you. You could adapt that as you went on. The soul may have come up with certain things, but they weren't strict parameters. Like people said, okay, you're going to suffer at this point, but you're going to come out of it. But why do you have to do this? Why do you have to have this? Even I found out with my accident that was from an external source. So, it aided in me getting certain memories back, but could that have also not come back with a less harsh way? That's what I've also questioned as well. Because why would a group of protectors have come in to help me protect against another force at that point if there wasn't a possibility that I would have been taken out? You see like even the beings over on the other side were saying, oh, it's not your time. Well, that's a matter of choice. Obviously, somebody out there thought they could, and they believed they could. So there's something to that. In this, with the soul mission, there's many ways that this can come true, many variations that this can take place in. Not just like, okay, I have to go through this in order to attain this. That's not true. You choose how you attain it. This is where some of the again some of the more new age stuff comes up. It's not all crap, because there's some stuff that I've seen that actually works and is true. Bringing in a lot of your oversoul, that's absolutely true. That part has been true. The thing on also anything on stones, crystals, all that behind it, that's all been true. But what I'm trying to get at here is that there's always a choice in this. You don't have to learn about pain and suffering and trauma anymore. That is a load of government cabal garbage. They are an Orion garbage. You don't need to learn about it anymore. People always go, well, obviously I had more to learn about this. No, exact your sovereign choice and say no more. These beings are expecting you to go into self-flagellation mode. Oh, I obviously did something wrong to anger God. I obviously did something so horribly wrong, and that's not always true. Now, in past lives, yeah, could you be completing a cycle? Absolutely. But if something keeps continuing, it doesn't mean that you kept doing it back there. A lot of times this is true, but there are times outside of this that are not. I've come to find this part out as well, expanding this information, expanding this out. You don't have to come in learning about this pain and suffering anymore. And also another, and I always have to keep repeating this part. There, if you don't want to come here another lifetime, you don't have to do it. Doesn't matter what you did. You don't have to come back in another life if you don't want to. So just like the whole Kabbalah said, where this wizard or this person encountered three elementals or three elemental beings, and one warned him his house was going to get burned down, so he blew a candle out. Another one said believed like he was going to get robbed, so he waited for the robbers and had him apprehended. And then there was another part where I don't think it was a flood or something like that. Depends on the variation of the story. And he was able to keep his house secure. Then a being comes in later, goes, "Oh, you would have learned 3 lessons from this. Now you've got to come back in the next lifetime." The beings that told you weren't supposed to say that. Bullcrap. You live as you want. If there are if there are positive things that are warning you, and you intuitively have vetted this, and you say, okay, this is positive, or if your own oversoul is basically trying to reflect that back at you as a warning, you take that to heart. Another being can't determine whether you come back in another lifetime and have to exact penance. If they're saying something along those lines, you kick them to the curb, because that's Orion agenda garbage right there. You don't want that. This is something that has been pumping around in the New Age circles for 20 some years now, 30 some years now, and this is complete crap. I've never believed this when I heard it the first time, where, oh, you must do this. If somebody's saying you must, I would tell them to take a hike, and not so kind of words, because that, and then they'll go, oh no, this is how the universe works. No, it isn't. The universe is neutral, folks. The universe will reflect back at you what you put out, because you're creators, and you're creating how the universe and creation develops. You are developing creation, and then in turn that is developing you and developing more of creation. It's a cycle. So you are part of creation. You are not exempt or separated from it. And this is what people have a hard time believing, that there is dark, light, and neutral in creation. Even some alien races, along with some of the councils out there, have taken that format because of the way we divide things. This is why you have to step outside of all the belief systems, or as Viking and I say, trifurcate away from what's been bifurcated, and just step back and watch it, and also participate in it and become the wild card within it periodically, not getting enveloped by it. And this is also what Frank Frazetta did. He lost himself in his artwork. And that's how he told us he developed the area that he existed in, the oversoul, because that's what the oversoul wanted to bring in more. Why would was something that's so powerful as an oversoul want to come here unless there was power here? Say, people think, oh, power out there. Yes, as an equal standing amongst alien races and everything like that. You know, you don't have a bunch of beings with higher advice coming in. You may have beings with more experience coming in, telling you what's been what, and basically being very frank with you, no pun intended, you know, like Levick has been, about the whole ascension process being BS. And some of the number scale that we've been told BS. Some of them are very straightforward. That could be their perception, that could be their perspective, but they are being truthful in that way. Just like Elena has come forward and said, okay, some of the update strategy that you've been told in the energetics is BS. You have to rethink this. You have to go over this. And you know how many times I've heard this, where you have to, they're saying, please look this over, please review this. Some of your information template is inaccurate or incomplete. To check this out some more. And this is also why I feel this subject needed to be focused on, also about when it's people's time to die. Again, who is on the other end of that spectrum saying it is? Is it the oversoul? Is it you? Because if it's you, there's no problem. And that's what Frank Frazetta was saying. There was no problem because it was still him. And it was his time, because that's what the overall expressional experience decided. If that's the case, and there's no corruption involved here, perfect. But if it's some other beings wanting to come to you, those are soul trader folks. I'm sorry. Any other separate being saying, "Oh, follow me," you're going to heaven. I'd kick them back through the portal at that point. Those are pirates, folks. So not the good kind either. Not Jack Sparrow. Sorry, those are more like Somali pirates at that point. So that you don't want that. This is a subject that people have a very hard time palating because it undoes all of this. When you say you want to undo what does not serve, and you want that reflection of creation and the universe to actually expand for you and the oversoul to come in more, you're gonna be in for not necessarily a world of hurt, but a world of surprise as to what was actually false, the foundation of what was actually false, because you were basing things you were finding out on a bias that may not have been 100% accurate. And this is sometimes why certain semantics are important within the wording of things, why certain concepts are important to at least understand the fundamentals of. I, for years, have said, fervently, I believe that it was when somebody's time was their time. It's because others were coming in and telling me it was my time, but it was based on them. They were comforting a person as well to try to validate certain things, but it wasn't about the person that they were coming to. They were saying it was my time, meaning they chose it. They chose it. It was about them. They were trying to give the message across saying, no, I chose my time. My oversoul, all of me chose my time. They were trying to tell that person then assumed, oh yeah, we die when it's our time. It was a miscalculation, a misinterpretation of what was said, based on a bias, based on something that was ingrained into the belief system. I'm not saying people don't die when it's their time, not at all. I'm just saying it's their choice when they leave this world, when they feel their soul mission is done. Just like Brian, when he came in, said people don't die before their time because their time is when they choose it. He didn't say it like that, but that's what he was trying to say, because he knew I hadn't broke that glass ceiling yet. So he was just waiting to see that. But this is what was trying to be brought across, that it was a misinterpretation. It's just like when ETs came in and penned certain books, good ETs. I'm not saying the bad ones. Good ETs. They'll just like when it came to some of the non-meat eating practices and stuff like that. There's certain ETs that practices, and other ones saying that they had replication technology, that they didn't have to eat meat. The human then interpreted, said, okay, I won't eat meat. Thank you for that instruction. That's the kind of misinterpretation I'm talking about. It was based on something, a place the human already was starting to get into to begin with. And no, this is where I wanted to go with that. That was the example I was putting there. The ones that had religious restrictions of heavy kind, those were oppressive aliens that came in. I wanted to make that distinction too. But with Frank, he was not alien. He was spirit. It's been a long, long time since I have seen something that was purely spirit. But at the same time, he was able to actually be a physical human-like person that could be himself, but be in totality, an avatar of his oversoul, like we can be the totality of an oversoul here, where he brought back that information and was able to adapt it. And when he was asked whether whether he was still into the sexual stuff and all this other stuff, he said absolutely, he hadn't changed. And people always say, oh, you change when you go over there, you don't feel those things anymore. That's wrong. He completely proved that concept wrong. And it surprised me to a certain extent, but I'm glad it did, because now it completely unraveled the concept of what spirit actually is. What was proven right was the bad guys can't reach people there. That was proven right, or at least in Frank's case. In the spirit itself, it's in a place where they can't reach. I have never seen that defied, ever, and not ever at all. So, but what I was surprised by was the fact that he was still able to form a solid person and still be Frank Frazetta as a full being with a beating heart in his chest after he had died. Now I've seen other ones take a split divergent path, like Geronimo did. He was still captured and eventually died on a reservation. But there was still him here that still had the beating heart in his chest, and his tribe was still in the pocket. I've seen that divergent thing happen. This was different. This was truly him with the human heart in his chest beating and the human mind, and was still there as the avatar of the oversoul after he had already passed in the spirit, and he acknowledged he was spirit. That one surprised me, but I'm glad it did. So, because I always based on what I was seeing was beating heart in chest or not, as to who passed and who transitioned. That flushed that concept completely down the toilet. And that flushed the whole sacred heart thing completely down the damn toilet, as far, showing the heart space. That flushed that down the toilet for me too, because I used to use that as a form of identification for evil or not evil. And the concept of heart and love can be on both ends of the spectrum. It could be that somebody loves to hurt people or loves to love people, or anywhere in between. So that flushes the sacred heart thing completely down the sewer. So I'm actually glad that glass ceiling has been broken. I really am glad. People would think that would devastate somebody. No, I am never devastated when that happens, except in very rare occasions. I'm more grateful. And that's the stance I feel that needs to be taken when you've broken a glass ceiling. Is there's a calm for a little while. This is what the bad guys weren't wanting me to see. This is why I was getting so oppressed. When I break a glass ceiling, they back away for a while until I approach another glass ceiling, because they don't want the glass ceilings broken, because they know once one person or two people break that glass ceiling, that it spreads into the benevolent Akashic records and the conscious grid, and it goes all over after that point. And it can be grounded at that point of the transmission. And they don't want that, because then they know it's like the butterfly effect, where you have a butterfly flap its wings here and it can cause a tidal wave over here. They know that concept's legit and they're afraid of it. They know when somebody comes up with this, and I can even feel the energy going way up even saying this. It's like a really high, fast moving frequency. That I know for a fact the glass ceiling has been broken. A very thick one, a very old one. That was almost like somebody being trapped under a lake under ice that breaks out of it. And I feel that this is what's occurred, even talking about this. And even now, that there's still continuing to go up and up. And this is even that concept. I have a feeling in the future is really, with high and low frequencies, fast and slow moving frequencies, it's probably going to have a glass ceiling behind it as well. That's just my feeling. That's just what my intuition is telling me. That I just want to throw that out there as well. Somebody's very angry I just said that, but I just heard the roar somewhere off in the distance going like that when I said something like that, which I know beings like Draco and them wear equipment and can go into all these different frequencies and bandwidths, like a radio transmitter. And me and a friend of mine in England have found them sitting in other dimensions that are faster moving, that they can rain their will down on people, and people think they're godly because they're up here. Just because they're a being that may be of your density does not mean they don't cheat and they don't go up here. And it doesn't mean going up in frequency doesn't mean there's not going to be good and bad. Another concept. I can hear another growl. So they didn't want me to say that. And presented with this afterlife information. They did not want that at all. I can tell you right now. I've heard like that, like a lizard grunting or something like that. Because we found reptilians in some of these other higher dimensions. People always equate higher with better, meaning no evil. No, they were wearing equipment so that the faster moving frequencies didn't give them density inversion or kill them or incinerate them, like they've walked into a furnace. It doesn't mean that there wouldn't be both things. I've found species that have evolved to a certain extent to where they've evolved into an energetic form, and now they need codes and codexes back, or they've evolved to think that that their methods are the only methods, or their methods are extremely benevolent when we would see it as evil, and they could be in a very evolved ancient, evolved state in a frequency that we would see almost as pure light, and that's BS. And the reason this conversation has now gone this way is because I felt this information train connected from one to the other. But yeah, I can even feel it now where in different dimensions where they didn't want this information out, where people think, oh, they're praying to this, is they always look this way. People always look up. The reason people look up is because aliens, because they look up to the sky. You don't need to look up to the sky for God or source. Source is everywhere. Sources in trees, plants, buildings, people. So you don't need to look up to the sky for that. If you're having to look up to the sky for your God, that's probably not a God you want to get to know. To recap a little bit, in these other dimensions, they're faster moving, so they would feel very profound when rained down here. And if something bad has taken control of that through some kind of technology or some kind of manipulation of some kind, they're going to take that frequency and use it as trickery. And present it in a way that you would be able to tell if something malevolent is using it, because there's still this heaviness and this lightness to it. And there's also intuition and discernment will tell you that. And that's where you also depend on your own oversoul for things of that nature, and your own heart space, the one that you can trust, and your own mind, the one you can trust, and the link between the two, and your own feelings. And somebody would feel like that was something higher. And that's also would be a good discussion on higher beings, what higher beings actually are. You are a higher being. Walking the earth, you are a higher being. You are an ascended being that is just getting rid of things that are just not serving. And that throws the whole ascension path out. You're preparing for ascension. Well, what are you preparing for? It's good to prepare for things. It's good to prepare for contingencies, good to prepare for change inside. But what kind of change are you preparing for in society? Are you expecting a war? Are you expecting a civil war? Are you expecting Armageddon? What do you expect? So that's what a lot of these beings are. They don't want people questioning that. Questioning that doesn't serve them. If you're serving them, you're not questioning anything. You're just following a certain curriculum they've laid down thousands of years ago. Some things work from those times, some things don't. That's where discernment comes in. So yeah, somebody was very angry I added that part in there because I felt that had to be touched on. It was like my own oversoul saying, this, this, you forgot this chunk here. And it needed to be part of the overall picture, because that too is considered to be part of the afterlife. Even I've bilocated and astral projected and sleep into other dimensions where whatever garbage you take with you tends to form the realm. I used to think that it was the universe was reflecting back somebody's junk in order to correct it, which that's still true. But certain fast moving frequencies as a part of quantum physics, that is also true, where it automatically is co-creating what you are putting out there. That's just a part of the physics, folks. It's not that it was malevolent or benevolent. It was part of the physics. If you're putting out malevolence, you're going to get more malevolence. If you're going to put out benevolence, you're getting more benevolence. You go into these faster moving frequencies, you're going to see the entire totality of it and think that you're not going to know what to think, because a human can't completely perceive on that level. Like what Frank Frazetta was saying, the way we were perceiving his realm was how our human mind could decode it. And that's how in Star Trek, Voyager, when Q brought Captain Janeway into the continuum, she saw it as like a Civil War type environment. Because the Q continuum was at war with itself, symbolizing essentially not only the war the Cabal had within itself, like with the different families, but at the same time, the way the universe is kind of schizophrenic in that way, because of what people have been pushing out there and co-creating and putting into those dimensions, you see. And also saying that the reason she was seeing it in the old American Civil War is because her brain couldn't decode what the energies actually looked like, because our mind hadn't gotten to that stage yet. Our energies hadn't gotten to that stage yet. But yet, in the Star Trek world, the Q are the most powerful ones in the whole damn thing, and they're schizoid as hell. they're power hungry as hell. So that kind of proved the point right there. Roddenberry's people put that in there quite nicely. So also it was a reflection of how the cabal was changing over into the Q movement. I'm not going to get into that, but that was another realm of thought right there with that, and I feel that was reflected quite nicely. But Frank Frazetta made it quite clear. It's like, yeah, he created his own space, but yet we weren't perceiving the totality of the oversoul because we were seeing it with the human mind, and our brains couldn't decode it. Just like when you hear stories of when people look at certain alien races and their faces are all blurred, and you see beings without faces and everything in history. Some of that's Orion because they didn't want faces, like Muhammad. He didn't have a face because he wanted to hide it because he was an alien. But with other ones, some people didn't see the faces decode correctly because they were not only of a weird frequency, but they had never seen a being like that before. And their brains were having a hard time decoding certain frequencies, certain bandwidths, but also certain likenesses. And if they had been around the beings long enough without all the theatrics that were taking place, they would have seen a being just like themselves. And they would have seen a regular face. If they had just blinked a couple times or something, they would have. And if the being hadn't been telling them, oh, you can't look at the face of God, you can't look at my face, you can't record my face, like Muhammad did. I did that in another recording that'll be part of something else. This had to do with that, where it was a decoding problem or decoding issue, or telepathic manipulation to screw up the brain's decoding. That's also Orions and reptilians are doing things like that too. That's a form of manipulation, but that's still also true where it won't decode right. That's a major thing that's popping up, and people think they're looking at divinity when in fact their brain is just not seeing it right. It could be a totally different frequency bandwidth, and they're just not used to the energy. They're not used to a being like that. They're not used to. They're also not used to the idea that there are other beings like themselves out there. So they don't decode that right. They think if they came from the sky, they're godly. And that's another template we have to get rid of. Another old belief that we have to get rid of. Just because it comes from the sky doesn't mean it's godly. Rocks fall from the sky all the time and crush houses. So it's like, no, we don't know. That's not godly at all. But people see that as God's judgment. No, that's some other being's judgment or some other being screwing around, or it's just a rock fell on your house because it was supposed to fall on your house, you know. But this, or it was co-created on your end because of the fact that you've probably invested thought-wise and energetically in the fact that you were preparing for a disaster that eventually came, if that makes any sense. But I think I've babbled enough. But I believe that all I had to encompass one topic. So I don't know if anybody's around, given the energy raised quite a bit from the influx of that information, which it just skyrocketed upward. When I say upward, it's fast. It's like you're being scrubbed in like lots of like bubbles and like carbonation. It's like this up like that, or it goes up your spine, up your back, or up your face and everything. Feels like you just were in like a jacuzzi or something. So that's kind of what it feels like to me when you have a jet hit you or something like that. So let's see here. Whew, something is really there is like this. There's an agitation, I want to say, but there's also a good source here as well. There's just this severe agitation over having just said all that we just mixed it up. And before we go into any channeling or something, I'll ground this information to the true benevolent earthly Keshiks and the true benevolent galactic Keshiks and libraries as of this moment of time here across time space where appropriate under the supervision of true benevolent source creator, true benevolent earth and the true benevolent verses. It is forever so in all moments, all sessions, and experience. Mirrored across time and space where appropriate it is forever so in all moments, all sessions, and experience. Now, do that, then they can't bitch. Okay. Which that grounds it completely, and any bitching they do is for nothing. So at that point. So ooh. Man, this is almost gives me stomach acid. What's going on here a little bit? I'm getting this in the throat here, but I'm trying to fish out an individual, and it's fairly difficult. I'm sitting here. Ooh. Come on, somebody benevolent. I don't want to say somebody. This is another thing. Don't just say somebody. Don't just say God, because you will get anybody. So just say benevolence, or somebody with benevolent intentions without conflicting agendas. That's the more accurate one. And that is what I'm asking now. Ooh. Yeah, I'm not liking this. Hang on. Audit the land, audit the up here. Somebody's fighting, so somebody's fighting to get over here. So it's like, I know there's Mosen. I can sense their presence, but they're getting rid of something. All right, thank you. Is this Boris that I'm seeing? You're not the one talking, though. Well, you're talking now, but you're not going to be the one. Okay. Boris, thank you. Okay, that's he's a Mosen captain. So yes, I could tell by the eyepiece he had on his eye. He had this yellow like eyepiece he put across his eye, like a monocle. So okay. So who else, please? Wow, my God, that is just wretched. I want that feeling that I had a moment ago here. Let's see. Oh, you're telling me created. Okay. You were waiting on me to drink the bubble myself. Okay. Conduit only for good. Only for benevolence without conflicting agendas. I can select who I can talk to. Okay. Okay. Who would be the best candidate for this conversation? Let's see. Not you, Isaac. All right. Let's see. Let's see. All right. Who wishes to come through? All right. I kind of figured it was going to be Elena. Okay. All right. Yes, I opened a conduit to you. Yes. Okay. Why is it so rough? They didn't want me to be able to do that. Okay. Okay. Is it closing that conduit fine? Yes, because you can maintain your own. Okay. Okay. I opened one of those conical time things briefly, but it was shaky though. It was like this. But it was enough for them to do it. So apparently it goes both ways here. So okay, let me see here. Okay. Okay, I gotta make sure this is you. I need you. Okay. Okay. I'm skeptical about something though. What followed you? Okay, hang on. All right. There was something else in the way there. All right. Okay, I'm asking that there be no interferences from true benevolent source energy, protection thereof, and no interferences from anything negatively intended to stop this conversation. As far as some multiple sessions expressions. Okay, who threw the net over? Man, you guys are pervasive today. Okay. Okay, I'm not falling for that one, guys. That was a big net that was somebody tried to throw over me, meaning they were hoping I would channel the wrong thing. And they were going to grab my soul energy. No, 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 no. We don't need pirates, guys. No. All right. All right. Ooh, man, that is horrid. I don't think it's safe. Hang on.
No,
You don't feel it's safe at all either?
no, I'm very aggravated.
Yeah, I don't feel this environment safe at the moment.
No, I actually think the right person to come through to talk about this again is probably Frank, in my humble opinion.
Frank, yeah, yeah, okay.
But,
Hang on.
I don't, I don't, I don't think he was even done with this conversation,
No,
whether it's done now or at a different time. But I'm just saying,
hang on, let me see if I'll get him specifically.
well, I'm just saying,
Isaac, can you connect to Frank Frazetta like you did yesterday? Oh, here we go. Okay, there you go. Oh, you helped clear the environment. Okay, I got to make sure that you. Why is there such a denseness coming from this direction though? Probably those damn evens again. But let's see. Wow. Okay, we're just going to do it in a different way here. Move what? Move what? Move the energies. What? Okay. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. I got to make sure that's you, friend. There was a lot of interference in the same type of and vein yesterday, very much like this, though. Eventually evened out when he came and stood fully here. So, Isaac, can you please connect? This is not stable. This connection is not stable. Let's see.
if it's not stable, don't do it.
Okay, if Frank Frazetta wishes to give a message that it can be repeated, please do so. Through this energy. If you can cut through this and utilize the crystal here, like we did yesterday, to start with, please do so. Now, who's the guy that's up against the window here? What's this? Oh, I think somebody's trying to tell me that this isn't a job for an outside source.
Well, I just think again, it's like you and I talking.
Mm-hmm.
We're sitting here talking. We're right, whatever. I think if you can drift yourself past this, you'll see he's right on the other side.
Okay.
He's just standing there.
Yes.
He's literally just standing there so that you can get the opportunity to see how to connect to something. It's kind of like saying, go through yourself, see yourself as that big universal self, and you now go have a conversation with Frank's universal self.
Yes.
More that way.
Yes, that's how he said he would speak. So that's I have to do the same. So I think that's okay. What he's trying to say is that the time for the training wheels is off, is what I'm hearing. So,
because this is the kind of the bottom line. If there's no interference at that higher soul level, that everyone creates that, then you have to first go up to your whatever. To me, I guess it's, when I think about that, the first thing that flashes in my mind to think about my stronger self, this is what I do. This is me. I literally picture my universal self in my head. I see myself, the whole thing. And in my mind, I've made myself look like a huge, universal galaxy that's spinning, that's all me and all of that stuff. So that's what I put into. When I do that and I try to connect to it, I personally feel an enormous energy, like I now, and through here, some through here, but through here, I've enlarged. Like now I am this bigger energy. And so I am going back to me, let's say.
okay.
And so in that context, and it's an interesting conversation that you're having this now, because Chris and I, you can't share every single thing, every thought, everything that you do with one another. There's so much information, but I have to tell you what I'm speaking about right now. I sometimes see my universal self than going to something to have a conversation with
Yeah,
her.
that's what's going on now is,
And so, like, I'll be quite honest, sometimes I've been, let's say I've been frustrated with Michael. Well, it seems to be a little bit different if I show up as that me, we're going to have a conversation, versus just this aspect of me. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it seems to be a very empowering way to get, but that's just what I've been doing. You should feel so much larger if you're doing it this way, so much more energy, which is an interesting thing, which kind of led to my own personal thoughts and conversations of how do I bring this energy in better to create a larger torsion field to accomplish. Because again, on the end of my tombstone, there's only one word. It's called fulfilled. I'm not leaving till I'm fulfilled. I've been this way and thought this way for so many years now. And in that meaning, no one's going to take me out. I'm going to do it until I'm fulfilled. So where I have to bring in the energies to do it till I am fulfilled.
Ooh, this is very tough. Can I?
And you may not be able to. I'm just wondering, again, this is part of what we've been talking about today. Is this now a different type of mechanism of, communication that may be able to be done in a way where there will be less interference? I don't know the answers.
There was a fair amount of interference yesterday too, on your stellar council. So Frank Frazetta, if that is you that is present, please make yourself known. And as your entirety and totality of your oversoul self, even presented through that human avatar, please. If it is true, the benevolent version of yourself, you are welcome. All right. All right. All right. This should be sufficient. All right.
If you're comfortable, if you're not comfortable, do not do it. We're not here to impress anybody. We're here to ponder this question and to open it up for discussion.
See here, Isaac. That is the only being that is allowed at the moment is him. No others can channel or use this channel. More than connecting to his higher self and that land that he created. It's not like yesterday though. I'm not comfortable doing it.
Then don't do it.
Okay, that's what he's also trying to present to me. If it doesn't feel comfortable, don't do it. I sense he's involved in this, but it's like
he's on the other side of this. I think, again, some of these things that we ponder, some of the things that we grow through, some of the things that we learn, it's not like instant pudding. I know we've used that topic before. It's not like poof, instant pudding, ta-da. Now today I know this, I understand this, I can do this. I think, again, the whole reason that, to have this was to start a discussion about it.
Yes, and he's saying the understanding is more important than him speaking. I can hear him. It's just that trying to bring in the connection is a pain in the butt here. So it's like I can feel a ton of other eyes. So it's like waiting for me to initiate the connection so they can try to hijack it. So it's like there's like at least a dozen different eyes on us here. So let's see.
And see, this is the interesting thing, because why were you able to just verbalize what you feel he was saying? Were you just having a conversation with him and you just said what he actually said? You did that in a different way. Yeah. You did that in a different way than trying to channel.
Yeah, I just repeated what he was saying. That's all.
So that's my point. So my point is, is there anything wrong with that? And like we were saying before, you get used to constantly doing something in a certain way, almost in a ritualistic way. Well, somewhere along the line, we're going to expand. Somewhere
Yes,
along
this
the
is the
line,
point he's trying to make is expand. Okay. Expand your understanding. Continue on in a different thread when appropriate. He's using my phrase, the show must go on, meaning expand into a different thread for like things like that are live, like the Friday show and stuff like that. That's a little different how that operates, but for everything else, you can expand and be creative in that. Oh man, that is rough. Okay.
I guess to me, it's don't discount that you aren't bringing things in just because you're not channeling. I mean, don't discount what you may feel is an imaginary conversation you're having in your head and assuming it's not real.
Okay, I see what he's. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. He's saying I do this all the time. Again, what you just said, having an imaginary conversation. That this is basically the oversoul. Uh, how can we put it in English here? Building that bridge, or
Right.
Yeah, it's that it always has been. Either creating characters to talk to, like what he did. Yes, or coming up with inspiration. Yes. Oh, same thing. But only I'm projecting it outward and creating it, and it's going back. Yes, I understand. Okay, what are you saying? Is the oversoul going to talk today, or is this how the oversoul is talking? My own oversoul won't be able to completely speak. I mean, like how Moses does it until more is learned about the process. You just say, okay, how does he do it so readily? Because he's not thinking about it.
Right. I mean, because it's kind of like, again,
Then I won't think about it.
You just talking to you, and he accepts it. He just readily accepts that conversation. But again, there is a different feeling when you feel like you are talking to the more bigger part of yourself than something separate from yourself. I do feel there's a difference in the feeling.
Yeah, I can feel it even now. It's this.
So it's about.
Okay, if I'm getting the information right on my end of it. Speaking to yourself is not truly considered a craziness or a disorder, but is more of you speaking to the world or speaking to the energies. Okay, here we go. Okay. He's saying, good, yeah, this is the way it's done. Okay. Speaking to the overall energies with a free flow. Friends of ours are doing the same, but not understanding this is the case. Because it's been taught as an indoctrination that it is considered to be a mental disorder.
And a way to split you to go to something else.
And to go to something else and divert to something else and to another source to get your information from. And yes, poignant thought here, split from self, not split from self. Wow, that's difficult. Okay. And in fact, I can do it with my eyes open. That's different too. So, okay. That's another fallacy. You don't have to have the I should. It just is easier. Okay. Remember who you are and what they are trying to get you to become. If what they're trying to get you to become is not who you are, don't become it. Even if the thoughts seem crazy. You are you, you are not them. Even though all is one. Remember, all thoughts and all actions, all energies are co-synchronous, but are also to the individual. But there are universal concepts. These are not contradictory in nature. They are co-synchronous. They are one, not separate concepts. This is all that needs to be said for now.
And then just understand there is a separate feeling. I really feel strongly about that. So sometimes we talk about the pressure coming on to our body being from an outside force pushing down, pushing on the chest, pushing on the head. My experience is it's the opposite. It's energy trying to burst through. It's energies trying to burst through that makes you feel bigger. That's internal. I feel that's more of you bringing in more of you versus an outside source. So I don't know if you feel any of that at times.
Yes, when I feel like I'm talking to myself, one of our friends in England was saying the same thing, like he couldn't help but talk to himself constantly. And he writes things, he draws things, he does all this, and even if I'm in the garage, I'm having a conversation with like nothing, and it's like, or what I think is nothing, and it is really this.
And it really is. And again, we're not talking. You're not necessarily talking out loud and having a conversation outside. You know what I mean? We're not saying that. But I'm saying the pondering, the wanting to know, the have the heart be open or whatever. We've always said maybe tap more into yourself. And then this would, there will be a different sensation when that occurs versus something trying to come in to interfere. So you have to discern that out. I will tell you, in all honesty, you truly will feel bigger in an energetic sense. I think part of it, as far as using that energy in a way that adds to your co-creative process, it's how to bring it in and sustain it and do it. It's kind of where I think people are at. No different than when that mother brings that energy in so quickly to rip a car door off. Do you know what I mean? To save a child or to do something. And so, again, the biggest part of this conversation is expansion. And again, not that anything's been done wrong, because you channel, you bring things in. But when you run into such interference now, and you run into such blockades, and is there another way? I always believe there is another way. It's just a matter of us exploring to figure out what is that other way. And you can cut a pie into many different slices. When somebody says this is the only way, it's like, no, it's not. I just know it's not. And so what does that exploration look like on that expansion? And then
this is also why this week, why there have been so many multitudes of other stray information that seem to culminate as one idea in small little nuggets of recordings and other writings, because it is all based in one ideal, or one, not one ideal, but one tapestry. And this is why, oh, man, is that difficult. This is why all these things have been coming through. What was in the way informationally that was just intellectual was having to be spewed out before this could occur. This is a natural process if you've been primarily brain or intellectual. It's not nonsensical information, it's crucial, but at the same time, it's only a piece of the puzzle. Remembering details, place, times. It's crucial, yes, but at the same time, can be integrated. And this is not easy to do. I can tell you that right now, because this goes through the whole of you, not just here. It's like it just goes, and it's like this. This is what Frank was waiting to see, actually. And the moment I automatically kicked that pilot light on, every frigging enemy in the area just took off running. So it was like these even just took off that direction as soon as I did that. So
Well, you
like,
bring in such a larger portion field. You know, it's like one of those things. And again, I know this is a long conversation. I literally, again, just sat down and decided to have a long conversation and see where this went. I will tell you that it gets really frustrating at times, and we're human just like everyone else. When we run into these roadblocks and you feel like all of this enormous torsion field of negativities come your way, and you know that there's really nowhere out, you don't need it, and you're looking for that outside savior. You guys need to clear a path, and what you literally are being told is no, you need to create it.
what I did was,
and again, then this literally was said to us I think right as you were getting sick.
yeah,
No, you need to create it. But then you feel kind of, how do I create it? What do I do? How do I all of a sudden out of nowhere bring in a larger torsion field, a larger energetics that's going to move? There is, in my opinion, really the obvious that's been so ignored by people, which is you bring it down from yourself. You bring it in from yourself. You see, and it wasn't, there was another word that we spoke about a while back and having these kinds of conversations where I said, well, if you're really able to do that, is there anything wrong with connecting these under other onion layers? And if you're in agreement, why not lend energies to doing what what you're trying to accomplish? Meaning, is that what you do? And again, I'm saying that with a question mark because I don't have all the answers. And if so, is that what a unified soul is? When you're unified within yourself to push an energy, meaning from your entirety.
See what a useful phrase that is coming through, or at least one that's trying to come through, is it's basically the power of a sun and a universe exists within you. Utilize it when needed to your benefit and only your benefit, grounded, and then it will benefit others. One of the things I saw quite a while back in a vision sequence was I was in more of a virtual reality setting where there was like an AI messing with me, and all of a sudden I transformed into this bright, like sunlight being that said it was the oversoul and could literally incinerate the other consciousness that was bothering me, and literally just went, I'm considered the oversoul. This is the rest of you. And even in the presence of that, this AI consciousness just incinerated, and it just went, and then it completely, the walls collapsed. What it was really an implant that was trying to dictate actions, and it had its own consciousness. And the oversoul came in and just incinerated it, and it shut it off. And it didn't ever bother me again at that point. But because I couldn't get rid of it, and I was trying to use thought alone to get rid of it and try to shut it off, it would turn itself back on. I'd shut it off, turn it off. But with this, it was just the rest of me like this, that came in and basically just basically went, I uncreated it because it was a distortion of reality, a distortion of creation, true creation. And even though it had a living presence, it was a what would be considered to be too far downward spiral consciousness, like a deprived type of consciousness. It would be more demonic, but at the same time, even though creation is everything, there's distortions within it. And that's what this was, and it had to be uncreated and balanced again. And that's what that was. That's how higher self is perceiving it. But at the same time, recognizes the earthly terms of how to identify things, not just in distortion values, how was the old terminology, but seeing things as also how humans would see them. So that's also important. The as above, so below. The human value is just as important because it adds back to that one. Even though you're bringing in a higher self or oversoul, you're bringing in more of you. I even hate the term over or higher because it's you. You know,
Well, it's you, but we have to use the language.
we have to use the language that we're accustomed to, that the mind can comprehend in this case. And in this case, we're bringing back there what also then can be reflected back as well. So all of it's recognized, and I'm being told any being, or being told, it's me saying it. It's weird. Okay. Any being that does not recognize this is not in touch with that. But do not shun all of them for that, because they're just like you, just like humans. But if they have a conflicting agenda, or if they wish to hurt you, of course, kick them to the curb. But some beings won't. It's a misconception what people think higher beings. You're already a higher being here on the earth. But at the same time, don't go to these beings expecting a ton of higher advice, because they haven't completely accessed this too. So even the ones we trust, they're not going to always have they're not going to have all the answers.
Which probably is a good thing to change your language when we say, I'm interested to hear your perspective. To have a conversation, to hear someone's perspective, but to understand you can't just take it as carte blanche.
No, you can't take it as carte blanche.
But
Truth, like how other movements do out there, you have to not take it with a grain of salt. Be skeptical, but at the same time, take the advice for what it is, for that being is in their own evolution.
Well, right. And just again, you still have to filter it through yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't want anyone to think that these conversations are invaluable, because they're very valuable to just kind of, again, it's about expansion. Mm-hmm. But understand, and we've always said, you know what I mean, take it in, listen to it, throw it around there. You may feel it the information calls you. It's probably a call to the exploration. And, don't be afraid to have the conversations. And then even though, we're in the midst of growing and changing and exploring, just like we encourage everybody else to do. And it's another reason why we won't be some people's cup of tea, because we're willing to change our mind. The truth is the truth until a new truth comes along. Mm-hmm. And we're willing to explore more, to expand more, to grow more without shame, blame, or guilt. And again, that's it. That's another phrase we bring up: without shame, blame, or guilt. You're going to grow and you're going to expand. Certain things are going to remain, certain things you're going to let go of, and it's all okay. So because that's such a freelance kind of way, so non-traditional, I think, in the ways where people have explored how they have been taught to explore. Mm-hmm. in a systematic way versus such a freelance type of way. I just don't feel that we're going to always be certain people's cup of tea, because, if they decide they're going to adopt us as being these forward thinking, let's say, people, and they have it, and they unfortunately have a tendency to always want to believe what's coming out of our mouths as being a truth. As we're growing and changing in truth, they must be, then will become disillusioned because they want a foundation that stays.
Mhm.
And we're always into create your foundation as you go.
Mhm.
But so I say that because I'm so appreciative of the people that that literally have stayed with us in these conversations and are open to these conversations, because that's what I think expansion is all about. You're willing to create the stepstone of your foundation in your exploration, not necessarily the truth of all truths, because we're going to continue to expand and that will always change. So for you guys there listening to us right now, there's some of you that's open to that, or
Yes.
you'd be long gone.
I could be long gone by now, but this, okay, one final part of this is this expansion is ever happening. It always happens. Creation is always expanding itself via the over souls, ourselves. The terminology eventually will convert over from higher over in time, when people begin to decode that more and have it integrated. They'll say it's no such thing as over or under or higher, lower, faster. It's always faster, slower, all of it. That's where the frequency thing comes in. But also know that, as Frank did and myself have done, is bringing back the creations made here and put back there, as well as presenting them back down here. And eventually this forms pockets, universes, planets, all of these things. And they form in those images. This is why they would say sometimes God created in his own image, even though those were aliens that did this. It was still a different expressionary value in the image of another, then now that image of another and that plan of another becomes its own plan, becomes its own thing. And some species hoped that, other ones wanted humanity to be more obedient. It doesn't matter what those beings' hopes were. It's your own. You can work with good beings, ones that are benevolent and without conflicting agendas, all you want. See them as equals, not as gods, not as those expected to serve you in your interests, like how the Orions and all them would think, but as equals. If you don't care for an agenda, don't follow it. You don't care for a methodology, practice your own. You don't have to become part of a movement, make your own. That's a choice. It's never a prerequisite to become part of someone else's movement. Or as what was once said, it's better to die defending your own way than to live in someone else's. Even though there was a slight agenda behind that as well, it still holds. So this is where this session will end. And a new way of doing this will begin, mixed with, of course, still the outside advisors. But the human mind can only handle so much of this influx. So this will close this channel, but not close. That is also another incorrect word, except for that of technology conduits, as these others sometimes use as the time conduits. This is more of an internal library access. It never closes. It just fluctuates to be more grounded or more accessible. Eventually, there'll be one in the same. Damn it. That's actually much more difficult than Moses made it look. Okay. He does this all the time. He's used to that part. And the fact you can do it with your eyes open, that's a new one. That's again, that's another thing that I always thought was a prerequisite, that you couldn't use the human eyes to do this. And there's all sorts of distractions in the air and everything. But as soon as that took place, And I still feel this same influx, but it's not the speaking influx. It's always present. It's always ever present. That's what another message I want to be brought across. And Frank's going like this. He's been going smiling the whole time that this has been happening. This is what he wanted to occur. He wasn't ever going to come through. He was just going to stand there and watch. He came through yesterday. He said his piece yesterday. Now I had the same mind. He's standing there doing this. And of course, Isaac's in the background going, good job. So yeah. And he's saying about freaking time. Okay, but yeah, there were some aliens out there that they just ran. And I heard the whole oversoul going, basically saying, basically I am the essence of a sun, and basically feel that energy, and all these Ebens just vaporized. Oh, they did exactly what Frank did to him yesterday. He just kind of went, dude, and they were just ash. So it was like, he's like, yeah, creative distortions, like that, But for God's sakes, Frank, he just said, he goes, I like looking at human female butts, not ones where they wear them on their forehead. Okay, but okay, yeah, that's actually funny. Okay, so that's actually good. Not that he bashes any other species or race out there. Them, he's like that. So he's like, yeah, it's more of a murky area. Or Isaac goes, or is it a gray area? So it's like that. So think about that. It's like, yeah, I've used that joke before. So it's like, okay, somebody's laughing at that, but all right. I think we're good at the moment. But oh man, that's tougher. That I could feel the heat around the eyes and everything. That's actually much tougher. The tear ducts start to get really hot and everything. But okay. But okay, I think we can end this here. So thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of Talk with me and Joanna. It went off on a totally different tangent than I thought it was going to. I knew there was a sense of urgency there to do this, but it was more of a calm urgency. So we'll see how other interstellar councils go in this kind of thread as well. So and other shows we do as well. So thank you, everybody. You'll see this on our Patreon channel. Thank you for subscribing, or wherever this ends up in subscription form. So thank you. Bye-bye.